Every single year around SHOT Show, the corporate marketing machines try to convince us that last year's rifles are suddenly obsolete. They want you buying the latest, flashiest ballistic miracle fresh off the assembly line. But as a firearms instructor who has spent a lifetime on the range and in the field, I know that artificial hype does not drop heavy animals. I spent the last few weeks tearing through the raw ballistic data. I looked at actual supply chain numbers and cross-referenced decades of field harvest reports. And I am telling you point blank, the legendary 3006 Springfield is still the absolute apex predator of hunting cartridges. 2026, the most squared-away hunters I know are trusting their expensive tags to this century-old powerhouse. Before we get into the nitty-gritty ballistics, do me a quick tactical favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment down below. It feeds the algorithm and helps us keep bringing you the unfiltered truth about your firearms. Let's dive in. The caliber that refuses to die. I have stood on the firing line and watched these flavor-of-the-month rounds come and go. 1 minute, everyone swears the 6.5 Creedmoor is the only rifle you will ever need. The next minute, the 7mm PRC drops, and suddenly those same guys are panic trading their gear. It is a brilliant business model for the suits, but it is a fairy tale for the consumer. The absolute truth is, the 3006 has been putting meat on the table without interruption since 1906. It earned its initial stripes in the mud as a United States military workhorse. Then it came home and spent the next century dominating whitetail, mule deer, elk, moose, and black bear across the continent. You do not get that kind of legacy from clever magazine ads. You earn it by driving massive kinetic energy through thick hides in the worst weather imaginable. Whether you are freezing in an eastern tree stand or glassing a windy, high-altitude ridge out west, it flat-out performs. Grab any standard factory box of 150 or 180 grain ammunition. You can expect muzzle velocities ranging from 2,700 to 2,900 feet per second, right around 2,900 foot-pounds of muzzle energy, ready to dump straight into your target. Out in the real world, that means a trajectory that shoots laser flat for standard hunting engagements. It delivers bone-crushing terminal ballistics on impact, and it gives you rock-solid consistency whether you run traditional cup and core, modern bonded, or solid copper projectiles. Professional outfitters love that predictability. When you drop a small fortune on a guided hunt, you want a weapon system that you know will end the fight instantly. The 3006 does exactly that, and you never have to hunt down obscure, overpriced ammunition to make it happen. The practical layer, logistics over hype. Let's talk about the harsh reality of logistics, because gear failures happen to everyone. You cannot shoot a rifle that you cannot feed. You can walk into literally any big box sporting goods store or some dusty hardware shop on the edge of nowhere, and you are guaranteed to find boxes of 3006 sitting right on the shelf. It will be right there next to the 308 and the 270. Meanwhile, the guy who bought the newest boutique Magnum is staring at empty shelves and backorder slips. When it is the night before opening day and the airline lost your ammo case, retail availability is survival. Look, I am not trashing ballistic innovation or the new chassis rifles hitting the market, but the 3006 remains the absolute baseline standard for a highly specific reason. It is completely reliable. It is universally stocked everywhere you travel, and it has a century of confirmed performance behind it. That trinity of traits makes it completely bulletproof against fleeting industry trends. Ballistics do not lie. The hard math. As someone who trains shooters for a living, I do not care about feelings or internet forums. I care about raw physics. Let's run the hard numbers. If you chamber a standard 165 grain soft point, you are pushing right around 2,800 feet per second out of a typical sporter barrel. Step up to a 180 grain slug, and you are sitting comfortably at 2,700. That translates to roughly 2,800 to 3,000 foot-pounds of devastating force at the muzzle. When you tell a veteran elk guide you are packing those numbers, they instantly stop worrying about your capabilities. If you dial in a 200-yard zero with that 165 grain pill, you are only looking at about 7 to 8 inches of bullet drop at the 300-yard line. Stretch it out to 500 yards, and you drop roughly 45 to 50 inches. What about the wind? If you catch a 10-mile-per-hour full-value crosswind at 500 yards, you will need to hold about 20 to 24 inches for drift, depending on your specific ballistic profile. That is not just manageable for the average shooter. That is exceptionally predictable for anyone who knows how to run their reticle. And predictability is what puts venison in the chest freezer. Period. The Rivalry, stacking up the competition. Now, let's put it head-to-head against the modern darlings, so we have a completely transparent baseline. Take the phenomenal .308 Winchester. Pushing a 165-grain bullet, it yields about 2,650 to 2,700 feet per second. The trajectory is incredibly similar to our .30 caliber veteran, but it bleeds off more kinetic energy when you push past that 300-yard mark. Then we have the famous .65 Creedmoor. Running a 140-grain projectile, it generally clocks 2,650 to 2,700 out of a standard hunting rig. Yes, its superior ballistic coefficient cuts through the wind beautifully. But when that bullet impacts heavy bone at distance, it lacks the sheer concussive horsepower of the larger .30 caliber options. Finally, let's look at the 7mm PRC. It is an absolute rocket ship, driving a sleek 175-grain bullet near 3,000 feet per second. It shoots laser flat and laughs at crosswinds. But that performance costs you severely in violent felt recoil, exorbitant ammunition prices, and massive supply chain headaches when you actually try to source a box. Versatility is the real flex. The true superpower of the 30-06 is its absolute modular adaptability. It occupies the perfect ballistic sweet spot. It has the mass and the velocity to shatter heavy shoulder blades on a bull moose, but it does not aggressively punish the shooter like a traditional big-bore Magnum does. And trust me, recoil management is absolutely critical when your adrenaline is dumping during a high-stakes encounter. If you shoulder a standard 8-pound hunting rig, the felt recoil of a 165-grain 30-06 load is roughly 18 to 20 foot-pounds. Compare that to the 308, which taps your shoulder at 16 to 17 foot-pounds. The 6.5 Creedmoor is a gentle 13 to 15, and that roaring 7mm PRC violently jumps up into the low 20s. Outfit your 30-06 with a quality modern recoil pad and ensure the stock fits you properly. It immediately becomes an incredibly smooth shooting platform. I constantly rely on it because I can completely reconfigure the gun's capability simply by swapping my magazine. Chasing speed goats or whitetail? I will load up a fast 150 or 165 grain soft point. Sounds like the Remington Core-Locked, the Winchester PowerPoint, or the Federal Fusion. They leap out of the barrel at 2,750 to 2,900 feet per second. They punch perfect, ethical holes straight through the vitals. And they do it without vaporizing half your meat yield with a grenade-like impact. Heavy hitting and high-tech. If you are staring down a bad quartering angle on a massive animal, you need extreme structural integrity. That is, when you upgrade to a premium bonded or monolithic copper design. We are talking about the Federal Trophy Bonded Tip, the Nosler AccuBond, or the legendary Barnes TTSX. These projectiles retain their mass, smash through thick bone, and keep plowing straight ahead into the engine block. That is exactly how a veteran hunter turns a compromised shot angle into a successfully punched tag. When my GPS tells me I am in serious elk or grizzly territory, the 30-06 answers the call effortlessly. I can transition to a 180-grain partition, or a 178 to 180 grain solid copper or bonded round. You are getting a sectional density of about 0.271, and the ballistic coefficients consistently range from 0.45 to 0.55. That specific mathematical combination guarantees you are delivering terminal shock well beyond 300 yards. It plows right through dense muscle groups without fragmenting early, for the absolute deepest, bone-crushing penetration imaginable on dangerous game. You can source massive 200 or 220 grain factory loads from companies like Nosler and Federal. That spikes your sectional density up to 0.301. And because almost every factory .30-06 barrel uses a versatile 1 in 10 twist rate, it stabilizes those heavy, long-for-caliber projectiles with zero keyholing or accuracy loss. Modern compatibility. Do not let the physical age of the cartridge fool you. This case design interfaces perfectly with 21st century projectile science. If you are hunting in a state jurisdiction with strict lead bans, you are completely covered. Solid copper options like the Barnes TTSX or the Hornady CX comply fully with the law, and they reliably expand perfectly at standard .30-06 impact velocities. If you prefer a long-range precision rifle setup, you can run high-drag profiles like the Hornady ELDX or the Nosler AccuBond Long Range. These give you incredible wind deflection properties without forcing you to buy a heavy Magnum action. From a tactical logistics standpoint, it is a dream scenario. You can confirm a 200-yard zero with a 165-grain round for your local deer season. Then, simply switch to a 180-grain bonded bullet before flying out to elk camp. Your ballistic dope changes are minimal, and your confidence stays at absolute maximum. Your brain will thank you when you do not have to memorize massive holdover shifts. Ammo you can actually find. This brings us to the ultimate battlefield advantage of this caliber. Let me tell you a story about supply chain realities. When the entire firearms industry had empty shelves after the chaos of 2020, I never missed a range day. I could walk into massive retail chains or tiny mom-and-pop gun shops, and there were always tall stacks of .30-06 flanking the .308 and the .270. The internet's favorite trendy calibers were completely ghosted from the civilian market. Every major manufacturer on the planet maintains continuous high-volume production of .30-06 because the civilian user base is virtually limitless. You will always find the blue-collar soft points, the Remington Core-Locked in 150 and 180, the Federal PowerShock in 150 and 180, the Winchester Super X in 150 and 180, and the Hornady American Whitetail in 150. Need something engineered for tougher impact? You can effortlessly grab boxes of Federal Fusion in 165, the Nosler Partition in 180, the Barnes VOR-T-X running the 168 or 180T-T-S-X, or the Hornady Precision Hunter featuring the 178E-L-D-X. Road trip reliability. That widespread availability is a massive tactical advantage when you are highly mobile. If you accidentally leave your ammo bag on the kitchen counter before a cross-country drive, you can pull into a small-town gas station and tackle shop along Interstate 95 and buy a replacement box. Your Ballistic Zero remains perfectly viable. If you are in a hunting camp and your buddy's rifle is throwing terrible groups with a certain brand, you can literally toss him a different manufacturer's box in the exact identical weight class. You stay in the fight without missing a beat. Maximizing your weather window during a short season. Guys running reloading presses in their garage, it is absolute paradise. Spent brass casings are literally laying on the ground at every public range. You can sweep up brass from Federal, Winchester, Nosler, and Norma. You never have to wait on back-ordered sizing dies from RCBS, Hornady, Redding, or Lee. With a bullet selection spanning all the way from 125 up to 220 grains, you can meticulously hand-load a soft recoiling 150 for regional deer, or craft a heavy 200-grain sledgehammer for moose. And you never have to fight your magazine length restrictions or barrel twist rate. Feeding and extraction, the mechanical advantage. From an armorer's perspective, the mechanical design of this cartridge case is pure tactical genius. The brass features a beautifully generous body taper and a perfectly balanced overall length. This physical geometry forces the cartridge to glide up the feed ramp like it is riding on ball bearings, and it extracts flawlessly, even when your chamber is packed with freezing rain, carbon, or gritty dust. That flawless mechanical reliability is exactly why the most trusted bolt-action rifles in history are built around it. I am talking about the legendary Remington 700s and the classic Winchester Model 70s. Straight through to the modern Tikkas, the Ruger Americans, and the Savage Actions. Even if you prefer to run a semi-automatic weapon system. The Browning BAR has been cycling this round flawlessly in frozen deer camps for generations. When you have pine needles in your magazine and ice frozen onto your bolt handle, that case taper saves your hunt. At the end of the day, practical marksmanship is all about shootability. This cartridge perfectly balances the weight of the rifle platform, the kinetic authority downrange, and the physical recoil. You can keep your dominant eye behind the optic, spot your own impact, and rack the bolt for a lightning-fast follow-up shot. Because the modern bonded and copper projectiles expand so consistently at these velocities, you get guaranteed terminal performance, whether you shoot from a 50-yard tree stand or across a practical 300-yard western canyon. Your shot groups will instantly shrink when you shoot a rifle that does not induce an involuntary flinch. Conclusion: the king isn't going anywhere. Listen. The final verdict is crystal clear once you strip away the internet noise and run the actual miles. The 3006 has been the undisputed king of the American wilderness since 1906. It is the absolute benchmark that every single new cartridge desperately tries to measure up against. With a bullet spectrum running from 125 to 220 grains, it is a modular weapon system all by itself, ready to be tuned for antelope, whitetails, elk, moose, or dangerous black bear. You never even have to switch your primary rifle platform. 165 grain round clocks in at 2,800 feet per second. A 180 pushes a highly consistent 2,700. You are throwing down 2,800 to 3,000 foot-pounds of destructive muzzle energy. Sectional densities of .271 on the 180s, reaching .30 and above on the heavy loads. That guarantees massive straight-line penetration through the absolute toughest hide and bone matrix. That is exactly why professional outfitters breathe a sigh of relief when you pull one out of your hard case. It carries total authority across all common hunting distances. The tactical logistics alone make it completely unbeatable. Factory ammunition is ubiquitous in every corner of the country. Whether you need old-school cup and core, advanced bonded tech, or lead-free copper, it is always available on demand. The components are piled high for the dedicated hand loaders, and the rifles chambering it span from highly affordable Ruger Americans and Savages to heirloom Winchester Model 70s and classic Remington 700s. Most importantly, that tapered case geometry feeds and extracts with absolute reliability when the environmental conditions turn lethal. So here is your operational directive for 2026. If you already have a 3006 sitting in the gun safe, do not you dare sell it. Confirm your optic zero, pick a load perfectly matched to your tag and terrain, and trust your gear. If you are a new shooter shopping for your first serious big game rifle, grab a high-quality bolt action in this chambering. Feed it a 165 or 180 grain bullet that your barrel likes. Get out to the range and learn how to read the wind. Let the internet commandos argue endlessly about the flashy new cartridges. The smart money is still carrying the heavy hitter that actually gets the job done when lives and tags are on the line. This tactical breakdown helped you cut through the marketing static today. Do me a massive favor. Smash that like button right now. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you do not miss the next upload. And get down in the comment section and tell me what specific 3006 load is currently sitting in your magazine. Stay safe, train hard, and I will see you downrange.